Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first Jon Myer podcast, hosted live here at the fabulous Blue Wire Studios at Wynn in Las Vegas. First of all, I love that Rocky video. I think I'm going to play it 10 times over, and for my kids tonight, that is freaking awesome. I love doing that. All right, everybody, I'm your host, Jon Myer, and we have an exciting panel discussion happening live here at the Channel Partners Conference in Expo. Right now in Vegas. Thank you to all of our expert panelists from ProsperOps, CloudZero, XOsphere, TD Synnex for joining today's topic of automating FinOps for cloud resellers and MSPs. Powerful, profitable services at scale. Before we get started, how about we actually introduce our panelists and our guests? Starting off with my left here, we have Alan Hand, founder and CEO of XOsphere. Alan?
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to the conversation, and thanks for having me.
Oh, Alan, I'm looking forward to it from everybody as well. Okay, and after him, we have Stephen O'Dwyer, Senior FinOps Specialist at ProsperOps. Stephen?
Thanks, John. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so Stephen and I actually had a chance to run into each other. We had this conversation beforehand at the DC gathering and for the FinOps thing. And he's like, who's this guy taking all these pictures? I'll tell you what, yes, I am that guy, and you will see lots more of me. And I know off to his left, we have a good friend of mine who I've known quite a while now, and we seem to run into each other, especially in Vegas. Mr. Eric Peterson, founder and CTO of CloudZero.
John, it's been a journey, hasn't it, to get here, right?
Yeah.
This has been pretty fantastic. This is going to be a great conversation. Thanks for having me.
I agree with you, and exactly what it is going to be a conversation. And our two gentlemen sitting over in the chairs, we have Matt Fox, Global Director of TD Synnex. Matt, how are you?
What's up, y'all? Came in this morning from Texas, so I got to throw in a y'all.
Well, howdy to you. All right. So, and last but not least, who has become a really good friend of mine and helped create that awesome video that you just saw, Joe Henderson, Channel Sales at ProsperOps. Joe?
Thanks, John. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Thanks for running through the streets of Philadelphia with me.
Oh, real quick. Joe came up with this idea, and I said, let's do it. And we got up bright and early, and we were actually running through Market Street down there, the Italian market, with the fireplace. It was awesome. Joe's idea, fruition, it came fully in like 2-3 days. It was freaking awesome. All right, Joe, before we jump into our topic today, I want everybody to understand, what does FinOps mean and what's the importance of it and why has it grown so rapidly?
Yeah, I think what we should do is actually go back in history a little bit and sort of set the stage of how we all got here. So if you go back to 2006, AWS brought out EC2. Fast forward 6 years to 2012, there's a $100 billion cloud market, cloud services market, and AWS released their APN program, as well as all these FinOps sort of 1.0 companies came to be because people didn't know what they were spending. So then you fast forward to 2016, CloudZero comes about, 2017, XOsphere, 2018, ProsperOps, which represents this 2.0 level of companies where we're helping people go that extra distance and actually automate some of the savings. So that would be a good place to start.
All right, help me understand the 2.0 versus the 1.0 type of companies.
Absolutely. So the 1.0 companies, which are still out there, they're still great. We complement a lot of them. They are all about visibility, some dashboards, and recommendations. Now, these recommendations, the partner or the end user must action those recommendations to take the full advantage of savings. So these 2.0 type companies that we're talking about are using AI, they're using machine learning to actually go in and automate some of this work, because ultimately cloud engineers should not be spending their time on this type of work. The bulk compute to go after should not be spent time. So these engineers should be working on better projects.
Okay, Joe, you said the bulk of the engineers shouldn't be working on these projects. And Stephen, as a FinOps professional, I'm going to call you a FinOps professional. I hope you don't mind.
Sure.
So there was a survey that came out, and I actually didn't look at the latest one, but it was like something like 35% of not being able to perform actions or actually doing actions. Is that one of the problems that we're running into with, like say, the 1.0 versus the 2.0, where I have actions to be done, but I can't do it, where 2.0 is I can do these actions automatically?
Absolutely. In my work at AWS, as well as with a managed service provider, we would provide recommendations to customers on a platter. And unless somebody had the time or knowledge on how to manage those recommendations, it never got done. So actions make savings, recommendations do not.
I don't have time to make those actions. That's usually one of the biggest things. Alan, I'd like to get your take on this whole FinOps adoption for cloud partners. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think, if you look at the evolution of FinOps and the evolution of the cloud in general that we were just talking about, it only is natural that right now all these partners and all the customers are looking to reduce their costs. If you go back and you look over the history of that time, first their focus was on moving workloads to the cloud. And you had a whole series of cloud partners out there that was what they were focused on. That was their mission, because that was the need of the customer, right? One thing that cloud partners get right all the time is they listen to their customers and they execute on what they need. And right now, the time has come where what customers need is actually to reduce thus cloud costs, and thus the focus on products like XOsphere, CloudZero, and ProsperOps.
Okay, Eric, reducing cloud costs, CloudZero, FinOps, what does that mean to you in today's world? I mean, this is a loaded question because, if you looked at, and I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory in a quick second, is that, a year or two ago, it was get everything to the cloud. And now with recent economic changes, it's now reduce my costs, and the focus is around that in the FinOps culture. What's your thoughts here?
There's a million ways that we could talk about this. Right now, there's a really interesting thing that we're hearing just from the people who invest in this space. We talk about folks who are coming to us and they used to say, hey, grow at any cost. But that changed. That changed very recently to really focus in on, well, why don't you grow efficiently? Why don't you try to think about this magic word that we never talk about, profitability, right? Because we can no longer do what we were doing before. We have to be efficient about this. And if you go all the way back in time, when we started talking about the beginning, in 2013, AWS themselves, they were out there talking about cost as one of the benefits of why you move to the cloud. And I think we got away from that because the truth is, if you build efficiently in the cloud, you can actually save an enormous amount of money, but we got away from that. The good times were rolling, we were deploying everything. And now we live in this world where every engineering decision, every line of code is a buying decision. And these folks who are making those buying decisions, they just don't have the feedback to make good ones, right? So we have to automate this. We have to build technology into the stack. I mean, it's just humanly impossible to wrap your mind or your arms around this equation anymore.
Every line of code is a buying decision. Excuse me, I have to coin that right now because that is actually true. I mean, think about that. Every type of action that is being performed, every type of infrastructure as code, deployment that you're doing has a cost associated with it. Matt, I want to turn it over to you, sure. And I want to talk about FinOps. Is FinOps a tool that I can install in my environment? Can I just go in there and say, okay, I have deployed FinOps. Yes, great. Now I'll walk away and that's great.
Yeah, we all wish it was that easy, right? But
it doesn't have an easy
we
button?
wouldn't have a job if it were. If you look at TD Synnex, most of our customers are really concerned with what they're building on top of the cloud, and they're choosing AWS often, which is what I represent at TD Synnex, which is like the sports car. But they also don't want to pay a lot for that muffler, if you know what I mean, referring to the old commercial from a while ago. So they'd rather go, optimize and spend that money on another data scientist or on another customer-facing engineer. So, if you look at FinOps.org and all the members, it's a crowded space, and the best players are here right now, so all good. But even beyond that, there's a bunch of riffraff that isn't on FinOps.org. So we help them make sense of the whole ecosystem and bringing together the different best practices, tools, and services to help them optimize costs so they don't have to worry about that aspect, and they can worry about things higher up in the stack that really impact the customers and the customer experience.
Joe, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, are you seeing that? Are you feeling the same thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So when the FinOps Foundation sort of came out, I believe they had 11 partners that they launched. I think these are vendor members, these are service providers, these are technologies. I believe there's over 90 now, and there's 10,000 practitioners. So the space is absolutely exploded, and there's a lot of sense that needs to be made. One of the benefits of partnering with a company like TD Synnex is if we have a prospective reseller or MSP that is looking to build or enhance their FinOps practice, they can do it themselves. They can try to do it, or they can leverage a partner like TD who has already established these relationships, already has agreements with AWS that they can get started immediately in helping their customers.
Stephen, is FinOps an implementation or a culture shift throughout your entire company? Is it something that I can take and implement in a week, or is it just something that is going to take some time to kind of get rolling?
Yeah, it depends on the organization and how much legacy cloud usage they have. If they have a large cloud culture, it's going to take some time to shift off of the old mechanisms that they may have been using. But as you're mentioning, it has to come down to every person that has access to launch a cloud resource has to have the cost implications and the optimization implications behind what they're doing. And that also extends to the financial team. So it reaches throughout the entire organization, and people need to drive that cultural change, embed it in their knowledge, and change their ways sometimes.
You know, I think one of the things that has been so amazing for the growth of FinOps is that a lot of people have been doing this since before it was called FinOps, right? Mm-hmm. There was a lot of people talking about, oh, FinDevOps, FinDev, DevOps, Dev this, whatever, you know, it's easy to get lost in all the terminology, but the reality is there's always been that person in the organization who knew what was going on in the cloud. And when the bill was too high, that was the person the CFO was yelling at. And then they were off chasing the engineers, and then they were off chasing other people, and they're trying to figure out, and they're connecting the dots. The way I like to think about it is FinOps has been there since it's as old as the cloud, right? And you've been standing, you know, that small team has been standing in the eye of this hurricane trying to make sure that they move with it so that they don't get killed, essentially, right? And now there's just an amazing amount of attention put to it. Economy is one thing, but you don't get an organization that's been growing as fast as the FinOps organization if there isn't something there, right? If there isn't like an existential threat. Because the way I think about it, even beyond this, is if FinOps is going to, you know, kind of live up to its potential, this is also going to help the cloud itself live up to its potential, right? Because it's easy to look at the earnings and the growth and think about the total IT space, and it's something like, I don't know, $2 trillion or $3 trillion. A very small sliver of that is actually moved to the cloud. And we all need it to move faster, because it's going to be a huge shame if it doesn't move faster, because we won't live long enough to
it's
see
still
it
going to be there.
It's still going to be there. And I want to see it happen, right? You know, I definitely want to see the world move the majority to cloud before I retire.
I think you've seen two things happen recently in the FinOps area, where companies have realized the amount of ROI that they get from spending on this type of activity. And they've also realized that this isn't a once and done type of solution, that it has to be a continuous process. And you put those two things together, and they see the impact of it over the long run, and now all of a sudden they start to make more and more investments in this area.
Yeah, but what's the difference, right? When we were trying to go to the cloud, it was a skill set, right? We couldn't get there fast enough because we don't have enough skills. Now we're there fast enough, and oh my goodness, we're spending too much money.
Well, you don't have the skills still, honestly. You know?
But I mean, I agree with that. I really agree with the understanding. Companies want to move fast to the cloud, and they want to go as quick as possible. So they say, you get us to the cloud. They get us to the cloud, and like, oh my God, you're spending $100,000 a month. That's, you know, costing us more than what we originally wanted to do. Well, you told me to get you there, and they built like for the environment. Here's my concern with FinOps, and it is a cultural shift. If you think about, here's a good question for you, Matt, because I know there's probably a lot of it that you've seen out there. And back then in the culture shift, it was like, I don't care about the cost is because I own the data center. My engineers will deploy out whatever they want. I've already allocated that through my CapEx. It's going to be done throughout a thing. But now we're trying to get engineers to care about the cost that they're spending in the cloud, the dollars that we're spending. How do you do that?
Yeah, well, you know, it does take a whole culture, and it's a holistic process. But I would argue that people have been doing this even back in the day of the data center. They were concerned about how do they get the most cost out of the equation. Even if you're looking at DevOps as something, I mean, that was like trying to get less people out of the equation and optimize costs there. But you know, the holistic side of it, we like to, if possible, start with the well-architected framework, where cost optimization is a consistent pillar across all the hyperscalers. And then, you know, cost optimization becomes really part of the culture, where you're running those well-architected reviews. You have certain tools or services like ProsperOps that you can realize immediate savings. But then there's some areas, like if you want to optimize your Dynamo or optimize, you know, EB or Elastic Beanstalk, whatever, that you need to do stuff within the architecture. So we have services that can help people in doing that too, but there isn't really an easy button. And like you said, it's not something you turn on. It's a holistic process, and then having the tools for observability and managing costs down to the department level, managing Kubernetes, which adds another level of complexity.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah, Kubernetes is a lot of fun. I mean, a lot of people have moved to Kubernetes, excited about it, And then they realize, wait a second, now I just have this huge black box and I don't understand what this thing is costing me, right? And it's terrifying because now that it's running, you can't tie down to an individual pod or workload, and you can't tie it back to all the infrastructure choices you're making. And so you lose that visibility. We've had a lot of customers come to us specifically because of that, because they're like, yeah, I think I used to understand, but now I really can't, right? And it's hard to line up those two worlds. It's like you've got a cloud within a cloud with Kubernetes.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I've seen in the industry a lot of success, and it's also an emerging study of gamification. And you need the tools like yours for customers to see the opportunity and to highlight the wins that they're achieving, and whether it be through automation or through pure engineering optimizations that are taking place behind the scenes.
That's where this partnership that we've got is really working, because our customers immediately come to us and they go, man, you've opened my eyes to how these things are breaking apart, but now what the heck am I going to do about it, right? You've terrified me. And we're like, well, this is where the automation comes in. This is where you can apply things to start bringing spot. One of the benefits of the cloud is this concept that we don't talk often enough, elasticity, right? Things should scale up as easily as they scale down. Over the last couple of years, most people are terrified because they're discovering that they were really good at scaling up, but they haven't figured out how to scale down, right? And the travel companies all got really smart about that. If you want to find some of the smartest people about how to be truly elastic right now, the travel companies, because COVID, when it hit, they had to figure out how to scale down or they went out of business, right? And now you've got everybody else trying to figure that out because everything is scaled up. So when we bring that visibility, the next question is always, okay, how am I going to automate this? And nobody wants to, the equation is too complicated, right? Handling spot application is too complicated. Handling RI, allocation is too complicated. The world is not getting easier, right? You need to bring automation in there. In the old days, when we all got started, we could do the equation on the back of an envelope. Now, how many EC2 instances are out there? It's like 300, probably like 20 more by the time this podcast is over. So
there's about 100,000 different variations for it.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
right? Yep.
Exactly. So everybody, real quick, our topic today is automating FinOps for cloud resellers and MSPs. Powerful, profitable services at scale. We have Alan Hand, Stephen O'Dwyer, Eric Peterson, Matt Fox, and Joe Henderson. Joe, I want to reach over to you and go off of Matt's thing that he was talking about, really the automation around EBS volumes. And we were talking about the 2.0 version. How are partners helping with this 2.0 version? We had the 1.0, now we have the 2.0. How is this helping?
Yeah, so what we're seeing is a lot of partners that are taking advantage of these types of products. They're able to go in there, whether it's a well-architected review or a pure FinOps assessment, and they're able to find out very clear savings that their customers can go after right away. So before, if you were selling these 1.0 tools, these were hypothetical savings, and hopefully the ROI would pay off at some point. So if you're a cloud partner and you're trying to do this type of project, but also this modernization project, you can utilize these types of tools to create budget and push along those other projects quicker. So the partners that we're working with are using a blend of tools, and there's even these consultancies, these small consultancies, they're actually using the sort of the trinity or the trifecta, whatever we're going to call it, of XOsphere, CloudZero, and ProsperOps. So it's pretty exciting because they need to deliver those immediate results.
At what point is there just too many tools to use, though? To get all of this work done, I know there's no one magic, and I'm going to get a single pane of glass for all these tools, right, to utilize. But there is a variation or combination of tools that we can use to get the job done and actually accomplish what we're doing. We're not going to be able to do 100% of all the stuff out there. We've all agreed that engineers are not going to touch it. Cost is not going to be a huge factor. The variation between actually doing it and the decommission of the architecture when it comes down to, we're just going to leave it run. We're not going to be able to do it. Oh, Eric, I think I touched it. So what do you got?
You touched the nerve. So the interesting thing is today, the cloud has solved so many problems for me as an engineer, right? I used to be just, up at night. How the hell am I going to scale this thing? How am I going to make this work? What happens if I have 1 million customers? How am I going to deal with this? Am I going to be able to provision enough? Those problems are gone. I don't worry about scale anymore. I have infinite scale, but I don't know if anybody's figured it out. I don't have infinite wallet, right? And if anything, it's made our lives simpler as builders because there's really one metric. And I love the well-architected framework, Matt, and talking, particularly when we work with partners, because this skill set problem is also a challenge. Like the cloud isn't just a place where you put some servers. It's actually, I think, better thought of as an operating system. It gives you compute, it gives you storage, it gives you memory, you make API calls to do it, but nobody's rewritten their software for this new operating system. And that's why it is so freaking expensive. But I've seen amazing things. It's like, take a quote out of Blade Runner in my mind, right? It's like, I've seen, clouds on fire off the shores of Orion, right? So it's like, what am I going to do in order to get to this new operating system efficiently? Because there are systems that I've seen gone from hundreds of thousands of dollars a month to like a few $100s.
All because they re-architected or redid their code in order to do it, or rebuilt the application?
Because they thought differently about it, right? Do I need to make that API call every millisecond, or can I do it once per day, right? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? And when you have visibility, you make instant choices. I've seen customers shave $1.7 million off of their bill just by giving their engineers visibility, right? And they did that because the engineers were suddenly like, oh, I had no idea. Because there's this tight coupling between a well-architected system and a cost-effective one, right? You get those things pulled together, you're gonna be building some amazing things. And not only that, every engineer today who masters that skill, they're going to be the most in-demand software engineer on the planet right now. If they can show up and be like, hey, not only can I write code, but that code is efficient, it is cheap.
That's saving a bunch of money.
It saves a bunch. And those engineers, they're the ones making the buying decision, right? So they actually have more power than anywhere else. You might have to get like 20 approvals to like go buy a dinner here in Vegas, right? In the expense system. But I can write a line of code and spend $10,000. Nobody will know.
They won't know until the end of the month. Alan, do you agree? I mean, not about the expense and the $10,000 a month, but
I completely agree. I mean, engineers by their very nature exist to optimize things. If you look at everything that engineering has accomplished over the years, right, it's optimizing for efficiency, for performance, for latency, whatever it might be. This is just a new dimension of optimization. Engineers already know how to optimize. They just now need the tools and the visibility to be able to make those decisions. And they need to be able to have the mindset that make that an important dimension to optimize on. But once you accomplish those two things, then it's easy for them. This is all they're doing every day on a regular basis. It's just a new dimension.
Mm-hmm. So Stephen, I agree with Eric, the reporting capabilities, right? I think giving engineers visibility, don't give them too much information because you pour over it, they're just going to ignore it. But if I think they understand that each and every action that they make has a cost associated with it. Everything that they're doing, say, hey, listen, I've got X, Y, and Z. It's going, the APIs cost 0.00 cents, and you're making 1 million of them, and you're costing me $100,000 a month. Is there a way we can be efficient at it? Now you've just gamified a way for them to do this. The whole purpose of the FinOps culture is making business-driven decisions in order to do it and be efficient and report on the right metrics. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and these metrics have to be objective and sometimes tailored for that specific team. Some are unit economics, depending on what they're producing and what the output is. ProsperOps, we use our own KPI called the effective savings rate, and that is an objective discount that you're receiving across your entire compute footprint. And so establishing KPIs is a very important step in building your culture, and they should be built at the individual unit level, depending on how your leadership structure is. But absolutely, I agree that establishing KPIs early on in the FinOps journey will garnish better results.
All right, so I've got a couple of challenging ones in a second. For Eric, I watched your webinar on Cloud Cost Optimizations 2.0. And I want to understand the difference. I've got Cloud 2.0 and I have FinOps. What's the difference? Are they the same or are they complementary?
It's totally complementary, first of all. I mean, this world that we're living in is one where we need to bring a lot of context together. The FinOps Foundation, by the way, they have a ton of great data. You go to data.finops.org and, number one thing, getting engineers to take action, right? And what's going to cause that to happen? It's data, right? Engineers are smart people. They don't necessarily need to be told what to do. They want things to be automated for them. They want things to, come off their plate so they can focus on what they're building. They want things to be delivered at the right time, at the right place. I was in the security space for 20 years, and when the security space started to move, application security in particular, started to move away from the security team responsible to the software engineering team responsible, the companies that did the best in that space discovered that they need to be timely, they need to be accurate, they need to be clear, and precise in what they present. And if they can't do that, then it's better not to say anything at all, right? And just by doing that, they delivered a ton of success. You go back to that world, and there was a kind of a watershed moment, right? Bill Gates wrote the trusted computing, his trustworthy computing memo in 2002. And it basically said, like, Microsoft's going to stop writing software, and we're going to focus on security because we're getting hacked. Our customers are getting hacked. It's horrible. We got to stop and change. We got to do something different. I think the cloud cost, optimization market, or this market, the cloud world ourselves, we're in a new kind of watershed moment where the problem is that we have not yet made the shift, at least consciously as an industry, to realize that, wait a second, it's the folks who are building, right? It's the folks that are creating this stuff that have been out in the dark. They haven't gotten this data. It's not for wanting to do it, but they've just been missing the data. So the paper, the thing that needs to be, that's coming, and I've been working on this for a little while to admit, is that we need a world where we focus in on cloud-worthy computing, right? And the cost to operate is one of those big constraints that we need to think about. And it's the data point that is going to drive us all to do, amazing things, right? You think about some of the most amazing systems ever built in history. They were in worlds where the constraints were extreme, right? Like the Apollo 11 guidance computer is fascinating. Amazing constraints, right? We have the same constraints now, and the economy is creating that pressure. I think we're going to see some really amazing diamonds because of FinOps, because of all this attention.
Matt, how is TD Synnex helping with the FinOps and the automation around it? How are we creating, or are you creating the scalable portion of it and enhancing other partners or other folks within the FinOps? I mean,
Yeah.
I imagine that it's very tough as me. Like I'm a small company. I want to implement FinOps. I can't do it. I don't understand. Why would I lean on you for any of this type of stuff? Because tell you what, I don't know what I'm doing. Well, in some cases I do, but.
Well, I mean, it's for that efficiency reason, and because your dollars are better spent higher in the stack at things that touch the customer experience more. If we look at kind of the ideal point for engaging with a customer, it would be, using, for instance, in the AWS land, the migration acceleration program or a similar one from one of our other hyperscalers, and helping them get to the cloud in a way where they're paying attention to observability, cost management, et cetera, from the start, where they're doing those well-architected reviews and they're getting those best practices down from the start. But learning all that is difficult. So our partners, even if they're a small reseller systems integrator, MSP, and there's a survey that something like 80% of MSP customers expect their MSP to be responsible for delivering on FinOps for them. Now that's a lot to learn if you're out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, serving small companies, to really get an expert in that area. So they get to lean on us and let us keep our finger on the pulse of what's happening in that realm, and really help them bring that holistic vision of FinOps to their end customers, so that they can focus really on that customer experience.
So a customer is coming to an MSP and say, hey, listen, I need FinOps and I need you to implement it because it's customer. And they're like, yeah, sure. I'm not sure what I'm doing. And then they lean on TD Synnex, who will help them implement that throughout the entire process. I mean, I've kind of summarized it.
Yeah, and it's not going to be a one-time shot, so we might
wait a second. FinOps isn't like once and done. You mean I got to continuously do this?
Yeah, well, we might start with ProsperOps and out of the gate realize some savings, but then we might work with something like Intel Granulate, and specifically target partners that have Linux workloads. So we don't look at the end customer. We try to keep that anonymized, but we call that partner and we say, hey, you're running on Linux. Did you know if you run Granulate, you're going to be able to optimize at the OS level? We might see them, using a lot of S3 and not using Glacier. Hey, right there, they might be able to save 50% on their storage costs if they just go and get smart about how they're doing that kind of stuff. So those kind of analyses that we'll do over time and help the partners, if they're MSPs or resellers or SaaS companies built on AWS, to continually just get the most out of their cloud spend so they can spend the dollars in other areas.
Joe, how is ProsperOps either complementing or helping out with TD Synnex within these customers, implementing or even enhancing their FinOps practice?
Yeah. So we're one of many tools that is in the TD Synnex family. And so if a reseller or an MSP comes to us and says, hey, we want to do FinOps, or we want to help our customers, they're demanding this, they can obviously work with us. They can look at 100 other tools and try to evaluate that. Or we can point them to our partner at TD Synnex, who's done hundreds of millions of dollars in AWS spend, have a lot of data, have already done the research, already have the best practices in place, where they can go and actually build it quickly and then start delivering for their customers.
And ProsperOps is where we start usually.
Yeah.
Because we partnered on the savings analysis that they have, where a partner that's already using AWS, we can right out of the gate within a day have a savings analysis for how much they could save without re-architecting anything, just bringing their spend over. And then we also give them a platform that isn't doing everything that CloudZero is doing, but it is specifically built for helping a reseller carve up cost and get it to the right customers and track the costs down at a granular level to those right customers and then bill them.
Yeah, these savings analysis, through partners or directly, it takes 5 minutes to set up an IAM role. About 4 hours later, we'll have a report that starts to get built on our side. Someone smart like Stephen O will come in and make sure that analysis looks good, and then we'll deliver it to the customer or through the partner within a day. Mm-hmm. So it's very quickly we can show them what they can save.
And a lot of times through that discussion, we find very burstable workloads where we know that we can't help, but we have a partner that can. And so we will kind of guide them to the partner that specializes in tagging, in spot workloads that we don't specialize in.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
You asked a question about what is this 2.0 thing, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here, John. Just
okay. All right. By the way, you are live and recording.
I know.
So this is a very.
So I think we've been talking about it pretty clearly. There's three things here, right? There's this world where we understand that these three things have to come together and be part of a single integrated world where the organizations that we work with, guided by partners, really honestly, because every 6 months, this whole industry reinvents itself. So there's no way for ordinary people really to honestly keep up with this stuff. So on top of it all, we have to think first, are we buying correctly, right? How do we buy better, right? Then how do we build better? Then how do we get to profitability? Because at the end of the day, I think we need to move beyond just thinking about it as cost, because cloud spend is really an investment. You're expecting a return on that investment, right? So if you're buying better, you feel pretty good about how you're going about that process. And ProsperOps completely automates that, right? If you're building better, right? And that's something that we focus on, something that XOsphere helps, in terms of how we're building applications, thinking about that technology underlying that. And then when you get to the point where you go, all right, now I want to optimize around profitability. And you're thinking about the products, the services, the customers that you serve, the unit economics, right, of this. That's where you bring all this other business context into the equation. And now you have the trifecta, right? Not just the companies here, but the trifecta, honestly, that's the 2.0 world we're trying to live in. So.
All right. Well, you outlined the three things. And by the way, you said that, the trifecta, the awesome companies here. We actually have first of all, it's nice to have all these companies in the same room, where some might think they're competing, but they're actually complementary. Mm-hmm. Everybody's working together. Alan, I've got one for you. And, we were actually discussing the automation for cloud cost optimization, and it requires a lot of new tooling, right? Related to expenses and everything. Are we asking companies to spend more money when they want to save right now?
Yeah, so I think that's the most beautiful thing about this space right now, is that we could solve these really complex problems, save a ton of money, and we could do it in a way in which it doesn't cost the company a penny. Right? If you look at all the pricing models for a lot of the tools on our space, they're all based off of consumption and usage, right? So it's just priced exactly the same way you might buy an EC2 instance. You pay only for what you're using, no commitments, right? And because of that, you could effectively on day one start using these products, save a lot of money, and not have to go find the budget to get them approved. You could start hitting the ground running, and you're saving money, and you actually these products create ROI for you automatically. Right? It's almost like negative compared to what you used to. You used to have to spend money to save money. Well, this is actually going to, without spending money, it's going to save you money. It's the exact opposite.
Yeah, I think from all of us here, right? When we exit that, kind of proof of value process, almost all of our customers or prospects at that point have seen some sort of savings, right? We've justified why we're there. We've gotten them there quickly. We've given them the visibility, the automation, the technology so that they can get to a place of a more efficient cloud, right? They're already on a path to how they're going to buy better, build better, and get to that level of profitability that they need so that they can be ready for when, whatever comes next, whenever it takes off, right? And we guide people ultimately when they want to get to that place to think about, what's your cost per value? You're a messaging company, all right? What's it cost to deliver an email, right? You're a consumer company. What's it cost per customer, right? What is important to you? Because that unit economic value is going to really connect the dots. The CEO of the company understands what that is. The engineer in your company understands that you've got that single pane of glass that connects the dots between all those things. But that's the alignment, right? Your cloud spend is a reflection of your business. Right? We are cloud-driven organizations now.
I bet nobody thought back then that every single email cost them money to send, right? We were blasting out 10,000 a day. Hey, this is really cool, this electronic stuff, and now it's just annoying and we just send out it a lot. Matt, I have a question for you. You were talking about well-architected review, right? And obviously cost optimization is part of that. Performance is another one. Where's my cost versus my performance? But I'm going to list out a couple of other things. And here's the difficulty that I find a lot of companies do. We have well-architected review. I got to do a review. We've got Cloud Center of Excellence. I got to do my digital transformation. Now I got to do my FinOps. How the heck am I going to implement all of these? How do I implement or do one versus the other? There's a whole cost. I mean, there are so many things that you should be doing or could be doing. I know FinOps is one of them. I actually, so as a former PSA for cloud management tools, cost optimization was right up there. And I understand it. Well-architected, same deal. I understand all that is very important, but how do companies decide what they should go, what route they should go, and what to implement? How do you suggest this?
Yeah. And that's where, ideally when we can start with something like the Migration Acceleration Program and do the Migration Readiness Assessment, which says, do you have a Cloud Center of Excellence? Have you built out all these things? That kind of helps us establish those things from the start. Now, not everyone is in that position. Some people started building on cloud and they didn't do any of these things. So then it's a matter of prioritizing, and we help them to do that. And we also help them to say, okay, you could go and build out this FinOps discipline and get 6 headcount to do this for you, or you can lean on us and we're gonna, take that off your hands and let you kind of benefit from everything that you want to be doing there.
So you look at that holistically, like from a 50,000-foot view of what the customer is trying to do and achieve and the cost that they can associate with it to actually accomplish these tasks. And you're saying, FinOps to implement does take a team of engineers, to grow, but not everybody can do it. Not everybody can have and hire that head count to implement it. And it does get very difficult.
Yep. And all the kind of tooling and services and stuff, there's going to be different value to different customers depending on what they're prioritizing, what's going to have the biggest impact out of the gate, and also building a roadmap. I mean, you talked about security. They were famous for building the 3-year roadmap of everything that you were going to do to get to your security posture where you wanted to be. You couldn't do it all at once. It's the same with FinOps, and we don't even know what's coming around the corner, what's going to be the next new thing. So
it's a journey.
Yeah. That roadmap's going to change.
The roadmap is always going to change. And in fact, in technical terms, it's changing right now. And in fact, we're 6 months behind during this podcast. So we're going to actually speed things along because as you guys may know, this has actually been going really great. And we've only got time for one more question because and this is going to take a little bit of time. Stephen, this is for you. Stephen and I were at AWS at the same time. We didn't know it until just like an hour ago. No, just kidding. Stephen, back in 2019, AWS released something called savings plans. It was supposed to be the thing that replaced RIs, right? Yeah. And it was supposed to be the biggest thing that definitely was supposed to disrupt the environment. I don't see savings plans as a disruptor. I see RIs still out there, heavily used, very favored, and I don't see them going away anytime soon. Do you feel that savings plans is the best instrument to go to first versus RIs? Or, and I know you're with Spot and stuff, so we'll be talking about that in a second.
Yeah, it's certainly a good place to start as you're beginning your FinOps roadmap. And as you're filling in the checks and balances with your team that's going to manage it or purchase a solution that manages it on your behalf. It's got a few superpowers, and it is a clear answer to a problem that the industry was having with regards to spending too much time making sure that there's utilization and having an easy button to cover anything running in compute, Fargate, Lambda, EC2, and it also applies globally. So you don't have to be locked in. And ProsperOps certainly recognizes that value, and we implement that value. But the other RIs, standard and convertible, had an exchange and a marketplace. So customers could mitigate the risk of overcommitment, whereas the fact that there's no marketplace or exchange leads customers to undercommit with savings plans only.
So
elasticity,
the elasticity of it. Yeah. I remember a year or two ago, maybe not even that long, there were a couple of companies that were able to manipulate the savings plans for various reasons to do it, and it wasn't what it was designed to be. Mm-hmm. But they did it in a powerful way for the customer, mm-hmm. and it was customer obsession. Well, I've got savings plans, I got RIs, I got Spot. I mean, we all know Spot's great to utilize, but you have to be an expert. You have to understand it. You have to be architect for it.
Or have a tool to help you with it.
Oh, hey, look, did you like that? Did you like that? Hey, I'm a professional. Sometimes, don't you worry.
Well, but Spot by far and away is going to be your lowest cost for compute. No questions about it. The challenge with it is, not everything is a perfect fit for Spot. Right, so we always encourage our customers first, go figure out what workloads are compatible with Spot and which ones aren't, right? Leverage as much Spot as you can because you're gonna save the most amount of money and you're not gonna get locked in for any kind of commitment whatsoever. And then if you're a company of sufficient size, there's gonna be types of workloads that fit into each one of these buckets. You really ought to be using everything. You should be using some Spot, you should be using RIs, you should be using savings plans, you should be even using some on-demand at that point. Right, and there's really a winning combination that gives you the flexibility of being able to be agile and quick and move as much as you can, but for those workloads that are more predictable, be able to lock in your savings. And then for those peaks and valleys of workloads and the stateless type of stuff, Spot instances become by far and away your best, pound for pound, the best way to buy compute. So really, you're going to want to use all of them, right? And we always like to say, hey, start with Spot first because that's going to be your best savings. But then, of course, there's somebody like ProsperOps who comes around, and the two products play so nicely together because it gives you and affords you that luxury. So as you're ramping up your Spot usage, that's not something that happens overnight, right? You're ramping up over time. Well, now you have ProsperOps that might be able to fill in the gap there with savings plans in the meantime while you're ramping up. And so the products play together so beautifully, it's like kind of a no-brainer. Why wouldn't anybody use both of them in conjunction with each other?
I think all the companies here play nicely with each other. We've got Spot, we've got ours, Cloud Intelligence, and then we've got partners that can handle all the stuff. I mean, ProsperOps for our RIs. It's like we've all come together for a better together story. Hey, how do you like that, right? Joe, I'm going to lead over to you because I want to understand what is ProsperOps building here? What are some of the things you're working on?
Yeah, so one of the reasons we're actually in Vegas because we're at the Channels Partners Expo, which is going on today, tomorrow, the next day. So we're talking with a lot of current partners, some prospective partners, and so So let me back up a second. So ProsperOps has partnerships in its DNA. Our founders worked at one of the largest MSPs, and that's where they created the idea of ProsperOps because they realized that these 1.0 tools plus cloud engineers could not deliver the ultimate results. So what we're doing is we're building a partner program where we're having partners, whether they're just a referral partner or whether they're baking this into their resell MSP business, they can deliver these outcomes, these savings outcomes to their customers quickly so they can create budget and then ultimately work on these better things. So I've been in partnerships for about a decade and have had some success and had some failures. And so we're taking a hospitality approach to partnering where we're just being proactive. So whether it's assigning a dedicated salesperson to this account to help them cold call into accounts and find new business or help them close that business or assigning an engineer to help run these cost assessments and close them to doing marketing activities for them. So anything from a normal email campaign to putting on a suit and running through the streets to coming into a very professional podcast studio. Like we are open to and we are actively doing this stuff with them. So we're not just saying, hey, join our program. here's a link to some training. Let us know when you have some leads. We're saying, how do you want to move your business faster? How can we unlock some of this budget for your customers, and how can we be the best partner?
Okay, I'm going to jump in there, and I'm going to give you my 2 cents that nobody asked for, but ProsperOps is awesome to work with. I love the folks over there. Joe, you and I did the collaboration with the Rocky thing, and it was like so much freedom to go ahead and do this creative thing. The team over there, ProsperOps is like a rising star and everything, and I think the culture there is what plays key. From Ross to Jesus to Alex, putting us on and really kind of running with it and running with these ideas. I got to give a huge shout out because you guys are definitely very creative and fun to work with on everything. So guys, I'm going to wrap things up, and I'm going to give everybody a chance to let everybody know what they can do next. Now, we did mention that the Channel Partners Expo and Conference is happening right now. Actually, it's live tomorrow for the partners, right?
Channel partners.
Channel
MSP
partners.
started today.
MSP started today. So for ProsperOps, the booth is 1453. Stop on over there. They are raffling off a new pair of AirPods Max. Also stop over and say hello to everybody because the culture, you're going to have a lot of fun. They're very down to earth. They just want to help. That's all they want to do. And if they can't help, they'll tell you, but I bet you they can. All right. Also, TD Synnex, you have a booth, 2230. Stop by over to the booth. Right. Matt, will you be there at the booth saying hello to everybody?
I won't.
Oh, man. Wow. Drop that.
People much cooler than me would be.
Cardboard cutout.
No. But, you know, for people that aren't here, too, if they go to tdsynnex.com, services, CloudSolve, we'll get them to the right place. I mean, hate to send you to a contact us form, but we're in 65 countries. We are solving a lot of different problems for companies working with us and different types of companies. So then the right person will reach out.
So I had a chance to actually meet some TDX folks over in London. My first time in London, and they invited us over to pitch them an idea. And I was like, I'm there. I'm going. My first time. The guy, it was so cool to actually get the chance to meet and actually tour around a little bit. All right. So Alan, where can people find you? Where can they go?
So first off, you know, our website's always a great place, XOsphere.io. Send us a note, hello@XOsphere.io if you're interested in partnering or using our software. Our CRO, Brian Valco, will also be at the conference tomorrow. He'll be hanging around with the ProsperOps guys in their booth a lot. So, you know, stop on by there and have a chat with
ProsperOps
him.
booth, 1450. Hang on over there.
Right.
So he'll be over there.
Absolutely. And, you know, I'll end with this, you know, XOsphere, really what we're all about is making Spot instances really easy to use and empowering our customers to use a lot more Spot. And we do that by eliminating all the friction, right? We're that easy button. And we've done the same thing. We really pride ourselves on how easy the product is to use. We've done the same thing with our partner program. And really, we have a channel-first strategy. It's all about finding the right partners that have those existing relationships with those customers. And we found that that's the winning combination to get the awareness out to all the customers on how could they save the most money the fastest. And so we're looking forward to partnering with as many people as we possibly can in the space.
Nice. Steven, I'm going to skip you because, you know, we went to ProsperOps. Yeah. I'll make you last. All right. Eric.
Oh, where do I begin? I mean, of course you can
Well,
come,
you only have about 3 minutes now.
I know. Of course you can come to CloudZero.com. You can go to fantastic partners like ProsperOps and XOsphere's booth and ask a few questions. I can trust these guys to talk and say great things about us. We love working together, and we've built a really great partnership here. And then if you're in the channel or partner space, we're doing a ton of work here today where we're figuring out how to kind of go to that 2.0 level for this. There's been a lot of systems there that have just been focused on reporting and things like that. We're trying to automate. We're trying to make the process easier for the end user, the customer. We've got a lot of recommendations that come out of our product. Some of those are go use ProsperOps or you should apply Spot here, right? There are other things that we're doing that make this even faster. We want to immediately bring value to our customers. And then over time, we get them to a place where they're building better. We're delivering anomalies directly to the engineers so that they can go, the number one thing to save money is not spend it at all in the first place, right? So they deploy something, they get a response, not at the end of the month like most people are used to with the bill, but they get it maybe within hours, right? And then they're going to be able to respond and fix that. It's just a bug. They fixed it. It cost $20. No harm, no foul, right? Or you leave it going and it's like $1 million. Whoops, right? Yeah. We don't want that to happen. So we've built out a lot of great things there to bring this visibility into this world and be that single pane of glass, and then get people to a place where they understand what their cost per feature, product, service. It's amazing, right? When you can go and see, you know, if you're DoorDash, like, what does it cost to deliver a meal, right? Yep. That's a powerful metric to have in your hands versus just looking at how much money you spend on EC2. Nobody should care how much money they're spending on EC2. So you know, if you're focused on that problem and bringing that visibility to that, the holistic piece of that, we'd love to talk to you. Come by our partners, come to our website, hit me up someplace online. I'm running around like crazy. I would love to talk with folks in this community. This space is amazing, and it's growing unbelievably fast.
Nice. Joe, before I end with you, Stephen, anything you want to leave everybody with? Because I got Joe here who's dying to close out. I love his face.
Well, I'll make it quick. Whether you run a cloud environment and you feel that you're highly optimized, getting the highest discounts possible or not, sign up for a savings analysis. It's free. One of our friendly consultants will reach out and be happy to hear from you. And yeah.
All right, awesome. Joe, I'm going to wrap things up with you for the closing remarks, and then I will do thank yous.
Absolutely. Thanks everybody for coming. This was awesome. And just, I guess my camera's over here. If any of the cloud partners that are attending this conference, come check us out. Come check out XOsphere. We'll talk about CloudZero, and definitely go check out the TD Synnex booth if you are a reseller. So ultimately, the final message is to these cloud partners: your customers are overspending and they need your help more than ever. So you got to figure this out.
I think you should all come and talk to Joe. Joe is awesome, down to earth. He knows what he's doing and he's talking about. So everybody, I'd like to thank our expert panelists, our guests, everybody that joined us from ProsperOps, CloudZero, XOsphere, TD Synnex for our topic on automated FinOps for cloud resellers and MSPs. Powerful, profitable services at scale. We have Alan Hand, Stephen O'Dwyer, Eric Peterson, Matt Fox, and Joe Henderson as everybody. My name's Jon Myer. You've watched the Jon Myer podcast here live at the Blue Wire Studios at the Wynn in Vegas. First time. This is freaking awesome. Thank you everybody for watching. And until next time, I hope to have everyone back.
See you at reInvent.
Yes,
All right.
or earlier. See ya.
Thank you, John.